So, looking at these things, somehow the startups were also founded on the basic experiences of the founders. In the case of Urban Ladder, the founders found it difficult to furnish their own home. They thought that if I found it difficult to furnish my own home, obviously this is a generic issue with the entire market. So, I can disrupt the market by finding a way in which I can provide online furniture for any home which requires furnishing. Kent founders, they had the issue of people at home being afflicted by diseases because of the poor quality of drinking water. So, they experienced the problem and they used their design engineering capability to make a water purifier. Notion Press, the founders wanted to publish their book. They went from editor to editor, publishing house to publishing house, and they said that no, this is not the way, we will self publish our book. So, it started doing the self publishing through their own personal experience of difficulty in publishing. Practo, when the founder wanted to organize medical reports to his parents, they had difficulty in organizing medical reports, and then that became the seed idea. So, if you consider Practo, it started with the requirement for having medical records for the parents, and that provided the platform to build a broader business model. Zomato, it started with finding the appropriate menus in the neighborhoods for the founders, and they saw a business opportunity in what they did and then rapidly expanded. Even Facebook, it was a DOM based application for people to connect, and once that was proved, it went into a big social media phenomenon. So, many times the issues which we experience as common citizens help us develop certain solutions for setting up startups and then growing them. It is not that startups are all innovation and innovation only. There are no follow through innovators, there are no follow through differentiators. It is also not that being startup means you have a monopoly. It does not occur that way. We are used to seeing monopolies in established industry structures. So, we may think that startups provide some natural monopoly. No, in fact startups is an area where there is enormous level of competition, because once you crowdsource ideas, when you open up the markets for innovation, every individual who has the ability to innovate comes up with his or her own model of innovation. So, if you see travel and hospitality booking, this is not merely OYO rooms, we have Fab Hotels, Vista rooms and several others. I have just stated 3 or 4 prominent examples in each case. In logistics, we have at least 20 logistics companies which can be stated. Out of this Ecom I have already mentioned, Rivigo is a leading company, Link is a leading company in South India. Then you looked at marriage platforms, we have matrimony.com, shadi.com, jeevansati.com. Housing aggregators, housing.com has been a pioneer. Then we have got Zolo, Flatmate, Magic Bricks we have. Fintech, Paytm I mentioned as the digital payment leader, but we also have Razorpay, Instamozo, Zeta. In MedTech we have Practo, but also we have Inaxel, Icagen, Innovio. Food delivery, Zomato, Swiggy, Uber Eats. Online fashion, Bluestone, Carrot Lane, Velvet Case, LimeRoad. So you look at any domain, you will find that there are players, and having players means there is competition, and having competition means not everybody can be successful. So, to become a successful startup, you not only require market disrupting criteria, you not only require innovative capabilities, but also you require certain methods of management, you require certain business models which will be successful in the face of competition. So, the situation is no different from established companies. So, when you look at the Indian startup stories, you will find that most successful Indian startups are consumer internet companies, not really electronic hardware companies, or they are not really artificial intelligence and those kinds of companies. And all of them focus on converting established marketplaces into digital marketplaces. They bring the benefits of e-commerce to vendors and customers. Now, how much more conversion we can have in terms of digitization of the informal economy, be it food delivery, be it commerce, how much more space is there and how much of future development will be in B2C of a more innovative variety, or it will be B2B or more of manufacturing activity, that is a matter of debate. And effective execution has been the success ingredient for many of the successful startups. Quick scale up has been very helpful, additional funding rounds therefore have been helpful, and companies got associated with good quality investor houses which are committed to the startup space, that has provided appropriate funding strength as well as mentorship support. And as I said in the previous slide, in most cases the founders came to the business with their own experiences, first hand experiences of the constraints in the existing informal system, and therefore the advantages of setting up formal digital solution. And most importantly, again, a majority of successful startups have been co-founded and in many ways by entrepreneurs with early bonds from school or college days. So, looking at the startup stories which we see in India, you will find that it is not only market led and market converting activity, it is also the discovery of problems by themselves, and also the old school ties or old college ties or old employment ties which have helped the founders come together and start a startup business. So, here we have got some nice tapestry of co-founding. Flipkart, we have Sachin Bansal and Binny Bansal, both of them probably are no longer in the company after Walmart took over, but they were schoolmates and alumni of IIT Delhi, they were former employees of Amazon. Common Floor, which is a real estate company, had 3 co-founders who were alumni of IIT Roorkee and former employees of Oracle. Freshdesk were former employees of Zoho. Big Basket, co-founders of FabMall, which was an early internet company. ShopClues, they were Silicon Valley and Wall Street friends. Practo, they were NIT classmates. Urban Ladder, people were founders were schoolmates. So, when we look at this co-founding, there is also this advantage of shared background successes which has helped them. So, we have seen the good part of startups. It is very exciting because people look at innovation, people look at market, people look at changing the market dynamics, and market itself provides many triggers for new products to come in, and startups have a roaring time as they meet the expectations, as they meet the demand. But given that kind of development, we also see there are a huge number of startups that fail. In fact, one statistic says that if there are 100 startups in a particular domain, it is likely that only 10% will be successful or reasonably successful, but another 90 will kind of morph into another type of company or move out of the market or just kind of stay on with some kind of support. Therefore, it is important for us to look at reasons why startups fail. So, we have an interesting study by CB Insights which points to a combination of factors based on study of 101 failed startups. So, if you look at it, 42% of the failures are linked to having no market need. So, obviously, it is a counterintuitive thing, because the hypothesis of this entire course is that that there is probably no market need for these startups. This is counterintuitive given the fact that most startups aim at creating a niche based on the study of customer requirements. Startups try to solve a problem of the customer with an innovative solution. So does an entrepreneurial firm, looking at the way the product market behavior is evolving. They try to meet the emerging demand, or the established business is segmented further. So, given that, to understand that 42% of the companies are facing failure because of lack of market need, can only point out to the core foundation of this particular course, that ideation, empathetic ideation with reference to the customer needs is the most important factor for the success of a startup. Then next factor is ran out of cash. This is understandable given the nature of startup, but the point here is that how you are able to develop a prototype in time and demonstrate your success is critical to get cash. So, not only you should have a clear need from the customer side, you should also have a clear solution from you as the product developer. Once these two happen, the cash comes in. But if you are not, if you are developing a product for which there is no customer need, or you have the market need but you are taking enormous amount of time to develop a product, it is likely that you run out of cash. Then certain types of startup product lines require more cash than other types of startup lines. Therefore, you got to judge your cash requirements in a way that it is related to the development expenditure. Again, we discussed that in some of our previous sessions. Then not having the right team is another important factor. So, if you really look at the issues, more than 50% is by 5-6 very important factors, which is lack of market need, running out of cash, not having the right team, getting out competed, that is somebody else is thinking faster and better than you have been thinking, and then inability to price properly and poor product itself. It is not that these all must add to 100, because there could be more than one reason why a startup has failed. So, it requires the number of responses in different domains. But if you really look at issues, even mistiming of a product could be causing startup failure. You did a good product, but you timed it wrong, or if you had bad location, that is, you are, instead of setting yourself up where there is a startup culture environment, you located yourself in a, let us say, core industrial environment, it is unlikely that you will be able to attract the right kind of talent and the ecosystem there. So, these are all the reasons why a particular startup could fail, and a response mechanism from 101 startups is a good thing. But the theory of startups requires that each and every aspect which we are discussing here as possible reason for startup failure must be addressed, must be really responded to in the way the business is structured. So, if you look at those things, lack of passion is pretty low on contribution to startup failure. This is again counterintuitive, but it is true in the sense that nobody will be a startup entrepreneur unless he has got unmitigated passion. So, even those startups which fail, they do not lack in passion. So, lack of passion is never an example or never a big reason for failure of startups. The failure of startups is because of various other reasons rather than lack of passion. Only 9% are attributed to lack of passion, but the rest are all due to various other reasons which are related to management, leadership, technology, market and things like that. So, the thesis of the course is that we should have an integrated product manufacturing and marketing strategy backed by organizational and business models for achieving startup success. The criticality of startup success is directly proportional to having a holistic business strategy, having a appropriate business model and having the execution capability. These are extremely important. So, looking at some specific examples from the Indian context, having a wrong product, having a mismatched team, lack of unique selling proposition, declining passion to some extent, which is more visible in the Indian context than the developed country context, neglecting to course correct, ignoring the need for guides and mentors and lack of timeliness. These all lead to inability to execute well, and they also constrain the ability of the company to get performance linked funding. Funding comes in when the concept is well articulated in the beginning and a prototype is well validated in the next stage. So, when you say wrong product itself is caused by a misreading of market, incorrect product specifications, poor product prototyping, inadequate testing and validation and even incorrect product positioning. So, this gets us back to the main issue of having the right product staircase: ideation, followed by prototyping, followed by testing, followed by validation, followed by commercialization. So, the product staircase is extremely important. We should have the right product specification which does good ideation, does good prototyping, does testing thoroughly, validates and successfully commercializes. So, when this happens in a very time calibrated manner, you will find that startup failures could be less. Similarly, proper deployment of minimum viable product is also an extremely important thing. If you do a minimum viable product which is far thinner, far narrower than what is required, probably you will not be testing all the necessary features. And if you do it too robust, you could be jettisoning the advantage of MVP itself. So, the startup founders need to be watchful of potential failures which come up as weaknesses, and probably they are more symptomatic of endemic causes with the organization. You will see some of the logos which reflect some of the failures or declines that have happened. In the grocery space, Pepper Tap, Local Banya, they have been pioneers but not successful. In the online education space, iProf and Purple Squiller, they have not been successful. In fact, in India, education should have been a roaring market for online education, but both in terms of private unlisted startups as well as public listed startups, the education field has not thrown up many successes except Byju's. So, in the public listed space, companies like Educomp, Career Point, Career Tree, CL Educate, Treehouse Education and MT Educate, they all have come up with good public issues, but the actual performance has not been supported, resulting in low rating in stock market. In the logistics space, we had Truckmandi and Parcel, which came up with innovative logistics models, but were not very successful. In the food delivery, while we have successful Zomato and Swiggy, we also had Tiny Wall, Super Meal, iTiffin, Bite Club and Zepperi, which had to kind of prune down their operations substantially. So, some companies have certain additional advantages which they have developed over course, like having a central cloud kitchen has been successful for Swiggy. So, just substitution of a physical delivery model by a digital delivery model has provided initial foothold, has not ensured success. Similarly, in the cosmetics and fashion space, Fashionara and Lady Blush, they failed. Auto NCAB, which tried a 3-wheeler auto hail application, that also did not succeed. In the laundry service area, Doorbin did not succeed. Therefore, it is not that being first to market is the complete success. First to market is necessary, right product choice is necessary, but again there is more to it than what can be explaining on the top of the mind in terms of thing. So, in some cases uncalibrated expansion of operations, skyrocketing operational costs and negative profitability, they also have caused decline of startups. So, one of the takeaways from this is that we should disrupt the markets for success, but that should not be at such levels that we should disrupt ourselves, because when you do deep discounting and get into a situation where every click is translated into a business opportunity, you may be doing it with a huge level of discount, lots of bundled offers and imprudent expansion of your delivery space. So, you should develop the existing products and services and industry structures, but in our attempt to be different, in our attempt to be disruptive, we should not lead to disrupting our own businesses, our own business models. So, there are many brilliant ideas, emerging models of startups and entrepreneurial firms getting realized by disruption or rather self disruption. Startups also should be cognizant of the fact that just as disruption is a factor for this company to enter the market, there could be competitors who must be using disruption to disrupt the other startups. Therefore, disruption is a potent weapon not only in the hands of the startup, but also in the hands of other competitors. Example, laptops have disrupted personal computer market just as personal computers have disrupted the mainframe market. But laptops themselves are disrupted by tablets, convertibles and large smartphones. So, it illustrates that it is a good entry strategy. Disruption is a good entry strategy in the marketplace, but it is not a sustainable strategy unless you are guarding yourself against complacency. Therefore, every startup must have competitive shields to protect itself through proof of concept and growth phases. So, I will again circle back to the same product staircase example, that there is no substitute for doing those 5 steps of startup journey in a perfect manner, in agile manner, in prudent manner, that is ideation, prototyping, testing, validation and commercialization. Therefore, startups must look at a set of holistic success factors. It is a whole paradigm of business management that the startups must look at, obviously with innovation and disruption as the twin engines of development, but they should look at the total business model as well. So, while we have looked at several reasons why startups fail, we must also look at the mirror images of those failures as being the success factors and also try to kind of codify that. So, the first startup success factor is complementarity of co-founders. When 2 co-founders or more than 2 co-founders join, they bring complementary skills. One person is good in technology, other person is good in marketing. One person is good in long range thinking, one person is good in short term tactical execution. So, this kind of complementarity skills of co-founders helps a startup very much. Second, passionate team which shares the dream of the founders and works with an equal passion. And the third factor, perceptive ideation. You should be empathetic to the customer need and come up with solutions that exactly match or improve upon the customer need. Fourth one, which we will discuss further in from a technological perspective, disruptive innovation. In this session we looked at disruption as a market phenomenon, how markets get disrupted, how various phenomenon other than new products and new innovations give us triggers to disrupt the market. But in a forthcoming session we will talk about disruptive technological innovation as the main theme for startup success. Then tested and validated prototyping, agile execution, calibrated scale up. This is also very important. There are companies which can achieve working capital management successfully by relying on incubators or by relying on pre-working capital funding by beta stage customers. We can do many things, but if you do not do calibrated scale up and look at the rational launch for a product where the resources are tight, you may be ending up with grounding your own venture. Therefore, calibrated scale up and clear budgeting are important, and the business model must be adaptive. Just as you as a startup founder are thinking of certain product innovations, others also could be thinking of different product innovations, or the public policy environment itself may be changing, in which case how do we handle. Like for example, you have a tax consultant who has digitized all the operations based on, let us say, a whole set of exemptions, whole set of concessions, a complicated tax regime. So, just as our honorable finance minister has done, the entire taxation structure, let us say, is simplified with one tax level and without any need for exemptions, incentives, etc. Then the need for the entire business model goes away. So, unless that tax startup has got an adaptive business model which retunes itself. So, what should I do? I should be able to have an algorithm or an model which tells the company, is it good for me to stay in the previous method of tax regime, or should I switch to the simpler composite one slab kind of tax regime. So, that analysis it should be able to provide. So, a tax consultant who is able to adapt his business model to a new environment that has arisen, he is likely to be more successful. So, similar examples you can think of in many other areas where adaptive business model is extremely important. You may decide to do a smartwatch with certain health application, but if you find that Fossil and Apple are coming up with more innovative ideas in a faster manner, you should think of something different. Should I have different kinds of applications in my smart analog watch? So, adaptive business model is the core. Then of course, timely monetization. You can obviously keep on working on your product till you achieve highest level of scale and therefore achieve the highest level of valuation and monetization, or keep monetizing in short bursts and ensure that you keep yourself at least loss neutral. That is, you fund your loss at least, so that you are not constrained beyond a point at any point of time. So, before concluding, let us see how entrepreneurial firms solve a market problem. So, this question of solving market problem is a question of understanding the customer needs, but at times it extends into understanding the customer practices, the ecosystem practices. So, let us say a company is set up to solve the farm produce supply chain issue. NinjaCart is one example of a startup which has been established to solve the problem of farm produce. Everybody knows that there are several problems in the agricultural sector, at least in India. The first problem is high asymmetry between supply and demand. What is demanded is not produced, and what is produced is not immediately consumed, mainly because agriculture A is a seasonal product, B it is a perishable product, C it is a product which has to be produced hundreds of kilometers away or even thousands of kilometers away and transported in a particular manner. Therefore, there is high asymmetry in supply and demand by the sheer nature of agriculture and nature of urban demand. The second point is that the farm produce supply chain faces lot of market layering and opaqueness. That is mainly because the way the asymmetry is built into the supply demand situation and the very nature of agriculture, which is within quotes a poor person's avocation, keeps the whole agriculture as an indigent sector which is subject to several vicissitudes, including natural vicissitudes, including lack of financial strength, lack of solvency, debt trap, various other issues. So, this has provided a lot of scope for different levels of layers which can so to say exploit the situation. So, there is opaqueness. So, the farmer does not know what exactly is the selling price for his product. Similarly, the buyer does not know what exactly is the cost of production. There is so much of cost layering that happens because of the market layering and the channel layering that happens in the supply chain. Then we have price volatility. If there is a seasonality of rain that does not happen, there is price volatility. You find, for example, that suddenly the price of onions double themselves very quickly within a matter of weeks, or if there is a logistics breakdown, or if there is floods in one region, then the price of products go up. So, there is a huge price volatility because there is no inventory cushioning mechanism which exists in agriculture to the extent it exists scientifically in a consumer goods. Poor warehousing practices. I do not think we have got warehouses which really protect the agricultural produce, and much less we do not have the kind of cold chain infrastructure that is required for perishable agricultural products. High transportation costs. We discussed that mostly loads in India go full or part full in one way and come empty the other way. So, there is no return mechanism, that is equivalent amount of goods do not come back from the urban system into the rural system for justifying one way of transportation loading. This is apart from all the other entry check, then octroi in the previous system, those kinds of transportation bottlenecks. Then the credit and payment cycle itself is adverse. So, which means that the industry has got several issues. So, if you want to set up a startup which will solve these problems, so you must do certain things which will solve the customer problems. First, the asymmetry in supply demand has to be fixed by having a good demand forecasting methodology. You should have a good supply stabilization platform to ensure that you are not subject to the vicissitudes of nature as well as the intermediaries. Then you should have a proper methodology for price discovery. You should disintermediate as much as possible, so that the farmer discovers his right price without too much leaking into the intermediate system. Then we should have distributed warehousing and collection system infrastructure, so that the costs of distribution and transportation are minimized. Not only that, the agricultural produce is well preserved. It should also entail a good stable credit and prompt payment cycle, so that the startup should have arrangements with other co-financing institutions or have its own ability to tell farmers that you give me the produce, I will give you cash on delivery. So that the farmer is able to join your ecosystem and become a virtuous farmer who is able to supply produce in a good manner. So when a startup starts solving the problems which are inherent in the informal system with the clear and clever digital solutions, with good analytics and good financial support and good disintermediation, it is solving a national problem and a society's problem. Therefore, the startup saga is not merely one of setting up a company and then taking forward, creating wealth, valuation. It is also related to solving some of the society's vexatious problems through ingenuity, product ingenuity as well as service ingenuity based on digital platform as well as other technological innovations. So, we will look at those aspects as we go forward in the next few sessions. Thank you.